Ayatollahs, I'm not sure I'd be poking the bear with Donald Trump.
The Zimmer News Team.
We're doing a deep dive right now to identify them, follow the money, and find out who's organizing this, who's inciting the violence.
And now, introducing your host, Randy Tobler.
Well, I think you should start at a much higher level. Okay? We are in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And the Trump administration and myself, we are here to make a very clear point. Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America. It's a failed policy. It is what the WEF has stood for, which is export, offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it.
Well, that is Commerce Secretary Lutnick absolutely making it perfectly clear at Davos, Switzerland, where all of the big players in the world are assembling, and Donald Trump is landing as we speak, to stir the pot even more in the wake of wanting Greenland, what's going to happen in Venezuela, tariff palooza. So from the international Davos to the local in Columbia and Springfield and Jefferson City, we are Wake Up Missouri on this Wednesday ahead of a super cold snap, another big weather event coming our way. I'm Randy Tobler. There is Stephanie Bell.
Luckily, we don't live in Tennessee.
Yeah, I know. My daughter's talking about it. She lives down there in Clarksville, Tennessee, talking about like 12, 13 inches of snow.
I called my sister yesterday because when she first moved to Tennessee, they got like 3 inches of snow, and she was out of school for a week at the time she was teaching. They just don't handle snow well. Like 16 inches would be devastating.
And
gosh, how long were your kids out, Steph,
last year? At least a week.
Yeah,
it was bad.
Big polar vortex coming around. We're hoping to get in touch with Tony Lupo perhaps tomorrow if we can touch base with him and see what's ahead, because the weekend's going to get frigid cold. I think it hits tomorrow evening, actually, tomorrow night, overnight. But
it's already frigid
cold. Get an update. It feels good. I don't mind this, isn't it? We're in good shape now. It's when it gets down in those single digits that even the hardiest shudder a little bit. Continuing to think and ponder about what happened in that church up in Minnesota on Sunday, and the more I think about that, the more it gets me worked up and riled up, as do the involvement of three 18-year-olds and a juvenile. The juvenile apparently pulling the trigger and killing a a Marine veteran and former Columbia firefighter on Sunday. That story continues to reverberate. A lot of activity online on 939theeagle.com website. I think there's even some national coverage of that. What happens to children to become involved in this kind of a thing? You just keep asking the question, what happens? I have some ideas about that. So as we roll through the show today, when we talk to Bob Onder, Congressman Onder will be with us at 7:08. And then we talk with Zach Smith about, did those church invaders breach the FACE Act, the one that the Biden administration used so forcefully, and I think before him, Obama, I think, invoked it once or twice, about the normally used in the case of abortion clinic protesters. Is it okay to just walk into a church? Well, we'll talk about your thoughts about that as well, and the legal issues surrounding it, as well as, of course, can Trump just take over Greenland? I don't know. Lord, that continues to vex my thoughts. A lot of opinions on that as well. John, this story out of Columbia is something that's reverberating. I'm hearing and seeing comments from around the nation about it. And, of course, getting into a story of what happens to children. Some of the stories online talking about classmates of at least one of the individuals saying that knew in sixth grade that the kid was headed for jail, that it was just a bad boy, that was going to be in trouble. And you wonder, how do we identify these kids when they're heading south and going off the wrong rails? And can they be rehabbed? Is it time for Boys Town? I don't know. It's
and the governor made stiffening the juvenile felony crime laws a big priority, and now we're hearing that lawmakers in both the House and Senate have some pieces of legislation to give prosecutors a lot more leeway in declaring juveniles as adult criminals.
Well, and certainly, and then I thank Jennifer Bukowski. We thank Peter and Jen for sitting in for us yesterday, Jeffany, and I saw Jen posted something about 3 lessons. I think it was it 3 lessons?
Yeah, it's going kind of viral.
That children need to learn. When you're around someone, when you pick your friends wrong, and your friends are doing something against the law, and you're there in the car, complicit in some way or another, watch out. You are in trouble too. There's statutes against it. There's laws against that. I don't think many kids realize that. I was just in the car, just riding around.
Yeah, well, I didn't point and shoot the gun or whatever kind of thing. But
well, too bad you're still an accessory after the fact.
Yeah, she talks about accomplice liability, which is what you're talking about, but also felony murder. If someone dies during a felony or while fleeing, it can be second-degree murder, even if you didn't intend to murder them, right? But if you're committing
like
another
even
crime,
one of the perpetrators die in the commission of a felony, the accomplices, like Jen said, can face murder charges.
And she said, third, juvenile certification. Yeah, juveniles can be treated as adults. So 3 important lessons she says every teenager should know before it's too late. Merely riding along in a car to go rob someone of a used cell phone is enough to get you charged with murder.
Well, and then I didn't understand that can you sell a cell phone without a buyer? You go to the ATM, and then you drop it in like you're making a bank deposit, and then it gives you money back. You drop your cell phone in there and you get money back. I didn't know that.
Or send them off to some online places, do the same kind of thing.
It's called an eco ATM. I didn't know about that.
No clue. I have a whole graveyard of cell phones at my house.
So I'm going to ask you, Dad, Mom, kids are going to school this morning, getting ready. I thought a lot about this. I don't know, this thing's really bothering me. I think a lot about how do we get at these problems. I know Barbara Buffalo and all of the, all the liberals, all the wokes say that, they have victims, they had trauma in their life. They weren't, they didn't get good grades in school. Maybe someone, slapped them around a little bit. Whatever. That's fine, and there are social issues, folks that grow up that are blessed to grow up in a nuclear household statistically have less chance of criminality, of school dropouts, of recidivism, of, all kind of things. That's documented. The majority of kids who grow up, though, don't have those kind of problems. So what about, what is there anything we can do in terms of trying to prevent this other than the big societal questions, trying to keep people out of poverty, making sure people have housing and food and so forth. And those
look at there's a ton of rich people who are jerks, who have jerk kids who commit crimes, who do coke and kill their parents. I don't know that poverty and having a hard life. I think it's about other people in your life, the influences in your life, whether or not you have money or not, I don't think matters. I think it's about seeing some accountability at an early age, perhaps, and knowing that there are actions have consequences. And what they said, I think the story said that these kids had done some of these burglaring sales, earlier in the week, and they were getting away with it. And I think what we know from, who's the guy who just murdered his parents? He didn't have any accountability in his life. He was
Reiner?
Yeah.
Reiner's kid?
Yeah.
Numerous studies show that areas with higher poverty have elevated crime rates, violent crime, property crime, overall offending. Positive associations, one review of 34 studies on violent crime.
I'm not going to argue with you this morning that poor people commit crimes. I think places with poverty tend to have more crime, maybe statistically, and I think there's a whole host of reasons for that. But anyway, I think it's about accountability.
According to Grok, some research finds that there's inconsistency across groups. Not all poor populations have equally high crime rates, suggesting cultural, structural, or individual factors like impulse control or morals. Now, what would happen? Just think about this, ladies and gentlemen. What would happen if this morning and every morning, before the kids started school, and especially before they left for home, because many kids go home, especially if they're older, parents are still working. They're left to their own devices to be home, whether they drive a car home in high school or whether, or did you start driving in late middle school, right?
What, we sit around and sing Kumbaya?
No.
We all go to church.
I want a jail cam. I want 5 minutes of a jail cam. And I want a teacher saying, kids, ladies, gentlemen, make better choices. You won't end up here. Make your friends that make better choices, and you won't end up here. Every day, 5 minutes before and after. And we're going to have a discussion about right and wrong, good and evil, proper behavior, improper behavior. What say you?
I'm actually with you on this because I think John and I have talked about this before. I visited the Missouri State Pen before it moved at the old downtown one. I was in college, and it was part of actually it was like a good thing you got to go. You were part of the, I think, governor something. Anyway, it was scary. I was afraid. It was terrifying. And I thought, I had the same thought, Randy, when I had to tour that place was, gosh, if they marched every kid in Missouri through here, no one would ever want to come back.
Brian,
I went back in the way back days of the old MSP prison with the very attractive news anchor from Channel 13, and we got done with the tour, and she looked at me and she goes, man, they whistled at you more than they did me. And I was like, man, that was a terrifying tour.
Well, and I think about the difference between driver's ed training, John, when you and I took it, an associated connection. We sat in these simulators and we watched horrific, made, the horror show look like a birthday party of crashes, dead people, blood. Here's what happens when you drive drunk. Here's what happens when you don't keep your eyes on them. Here's what happened when you speed. To this day, it has an influence on me. Drake?
I just wanted to go back to going to see the county jail thing.
Yeah.
I had a very different experience. I walked in there. They had
But you
TVs.
were in the county jail?
No.
Okay.
For a school trip. Very funny, Randy. They had TVs. It was just like, oh no, they're not allowed to have hardcover books, but these magazines and softcover books they're allowed to have. That looks like a vacation to me nowadays.
I'd want to see the life like reality TV. That's what impacts kids. It's all reality these days.
Jail reality TV.
I'm talking a jail cam. I want a jail cam in our schools for
Oh my goodness.
for a few minutes morning and especially evening. Now, kids, when you go home, you have choices. You can cut the grass. You can open your books and do a little more studying. You can, you can wash your dad's car. Oh, we don't do that anymore. We drive through the car wash. Or you can make bad choices and end up here. 573-874-9390. DC Rundown coming up.
It's
Last year, in a virtual address to the Davos World Economic Forum, President Donald Trump vowed that nothing would stand in our way in ending what he called America's decline. Today, he's there in person, and everyone's expecting a similarly strident tone.
Well, Trump's in Davos. Here's Stephanie with the Daily DC Rundown.
Apparently, he had a rocky road. Air Force One had to turn around shortly after takeoff due to a minor electrical issue. Not great, but they made a plane swap, and eventually he got there. Didn't Speaker Johnson had a trouble getting over there too, and ended up flying commercial because of another plane issue?
I think
right?
so. Yeah, they'd only fly Canadian jets.
That's not great. Not great. Well,
Bombardier, right?
I know there's a lot of serious stuff to talk about, but you know what I want to talk about this morning?
What?
There's going to be a baby in the White House.
Oh, man, here we go.
Isn't that exciting?
Well, they're doing their bit for the population. Yeah.
I know. I didn't want to be too personal and try to count back 10 months of what was going on in the world when that baby was, or it's not 10 months, but 10 months from the due date.
So she's due in July?
I believe so. I think they're having a boy, right?
And who is they? We didn't say.
Oh, sorry, JD Vance, not Trump and Melania.
No, people are thinking, wait, but you went from Davos and Trump to
Can you imagine?
a baby. Yeah.
All right, so
JD
Vance
and Usha
announced yesterday they've got a baby boy due in July.
Number 4 baby.
Number
4 child.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's very exciting.
So that would have been that's a lot of babies are made in the fall, September, October. Yeah, October.
Why is that?
Because she's due in July. Oh, it gets colder. Baby, it's cold outside,
It's not cold in D.C. in September.
In October, it gets a little cold, a cold snap,
All right, I think we're going to be talking, we're talking to Bob Onder at 7:10, right? And Zach Smith at 8:10. We'll talk to Zach Smith about the Supreme Court. We are not apparently getting a ruling on Trump's tariffs. We keep getting these rumors that it could be tomorrow, but so far the next possible decision date is February 20th, 2025. Trump's April 2025 Liberation Day tariffs place varying taxes on imports from virtually every country. He just announced a new onslaught of tariffs against the 8 countries that brought troops into Greenland. Trump has continued threatening tariffs over and over and over. Sometimes he has negotiated and walked those back. But that issue is before the court, and the scary part is apparently we would have to maybe refund some of the money if they rule against Trump.
This would be an accounting nightmare, an absolute accounting disaster.
I mean, isn't the federal government already an accounting nightmare?
Well,
I think we had an accounting boo-boo at the state. We're going to have to talk about that,
we'll talk
too.
about that. No.
That was yesterday. We'll get to that maybe at 6:35. So in D.C., I think the Senate's out. The House is in. We're going to talk to Congressman Onder about what's going on there. Of course, we've got this looming shutdown that we haven't really made much progress on, Randy.
No.
And I know I sound like a broken record there.
No,
but
we'll ask Congressman Onder about that. I mean, they've got some more appropriation bills to get through. Still, this question of subsidies, the extended subsidies, COVID-era subsidies that expired December 31st.
Congress has released the final 4 spending bills, but they just have a little over a week before the government shutdown. And, of course, Homeland Security funding is the big sticking point that they can't seem to come to terms on.
I don't know. So once in a while, the accountants get it wrong. And the governor and the legislature are happy that the accountant at the state got it wrong on how much money's in the till. That when we come back.
Insane electric vehicle mandate. Now you can buy a gasoline-powered car, a hybrid, and you can buy a electric vehicle. I mean, if you think, if you want electric, you can buy it. Make a good deal on them right now because they made a lot of them.
That was Donald Trump celebrating his first year. It's under his belt as of yesterday. We now have 365 of one of the most tumultuous, rapid pace governance at the speed of Trump years that I can recall in my lifetime. And there's more to come. He's not done. Maybe he'll have the brakes screechingly put on him when things in the wake of the midterms. We'll have to see how that works. But Stephanie, on the state scene, interesting. Talking a lot about the budget last week with various legislators and with the governor at the prayer breakfast. And turns out, well, I mean, once in a while, you miss a decimal point or something in your checkbook, and it turns out you have more or less money than you thought you had.
That is true. So apparently when they first did the budget calculations, they projected an ending balance of less than $5 million for the coming fiscal year. Now, I don't think that the auditor's report that came out weeks before that said, we've got to tighten our belts, included the same error. And so I think what they're saying is even with this correction, we still need to tighten our belts. But it was a $250 million budget mistake, which I don't know what the math is on if you thought you're going to end with $5 million and then now you're going to end with what, $255 million, I guess. Because what happened was they had a line item in there. I think it was for disaster relief. Mm-hmm. And they apparently it was in this year's budget and next year's budget. So it was just duplicated, right? And so they were able to correct that.
I think that's interesting. I mean, I guess there are a lot of, imagine the complexity of being the budget person who has to yield the numbers, right? And so this will, I think what they're saying is this will result in a little higher balance in the checkbook, right?
So yeah,
at the end of the year.
It was showing a $4.7 million ending balance in the coming fiscal year. Now they're saying it's going to be $261 million. It would still, though, they said, be the lowest general revenue balance to end a fiscal year since 2018.
So, but does that? Well, I thought they were spending down the state money. So this is a balance on operating money, I guess, right? Does that mean they're going to be able to pump up the reserve fund by $500 million?
If they
or whatever
continue to tighten their belts.
Yeah, I don't know if this is going to, according to the people in the report in the Missouri Independent, it's not going to change the calculations. It's not going to change the strategy. It's not going to change the need to, like you say, tighten the belt and find if there is tax reform on one bucket, how do you maybe make it up in another bucket? Right?
Yeah, Democrats are already spending that extra money. Apparently, Betsy Fogel of Springfield has said that money should be available. The Board of Education has requested additional funds to the foundation formula and wants to spend that money on education.
Why don't we spend that money on enabling people to access charter schools and homeschooling and whatever else kind of schools, parochial schools? Why don't we just let education? I agree wholeheartedly. Let's give it to education, but let's let it be choice education. Right?
I like that plan.
The American way. The American way. I didn't know whether to. I see these things that online, and I don't know. I want to believe that this is not real. What I found, Stephanie. This is allegedly a nurse, an RN, who is also involved in a home health company. And
one of those Minnesota home health companies?
I don't know. I don't think so. And she posts, how we talk about the vitriol from the left up in Minnesota, right? We see them attacking ICE agents' cars, throwing bottles at them. And in the BLM movement, we saw that the crazy left were taking it out on cops, were shooting. How many cop deaths were there? A couple dozen, right? During that time. And yeah, everyone has their right to express their opinion, no matter how disagreeable you may find it. And a lot of people find our opinion. A lot of people on the left would find our opinions disagreeable. And I don't want to hear you lefties start talking. Thank you lefties, for listening. Really appreciate that. It's good. Keeps us sharp. We have a few lefties that listen, and they communicate. 573-874-9390. I don't care how disagreeable, onerous, whatever your opinion is. Aside from J6, there were a lot of innocent people who just walked in because, well, they thought the gates were open and said, we're walking into the Capitol. There were some hooligans there who led the charge and tore into the Capitol and wanted to get into the speakers and did get into the speaker's quarters, and shame on them. They should be prosecuted. I maintain that to this day. The Proud Boys and people like that, right? But I think those numbers pale in comparison to what we've seen on the left. Ever since, started in Ferguson and then the BLM summer of 21 and on and on and on. Or it was summer of 21. So they just have a violent streak and they justify it, this terrorism, because their opinion's right and the rest of us are wrong. And by golly, they're going to prove it and show it to us. And if you don't agree with them, you're going to make them hurt. You're going to promote violence. You're going to ask for violence. You're going to wish crazy, hateful, hurtful things on people. So you were talking about how JD and Usha are going to have a baby. And people are joking about how, we don't even have a good replacement rate in this country. And that's why some of the lefties that want to bring in more, immigrants and we need more labor. A lot of righties, a lot of people in business want that because they can get cheap labor coming up from, Mexico and others. So you heard Caroline Leavitt's pregnant, right? She's having her second baby.
Yep.
Right? Listen to what this crazy nurse posted online about. I mean, is this clean? Did you clean this up, Drake?
Let's see.
You got your finger on the dump button?
Yeah, we'll be fine.
Okay, Drake, I asked Drake to clean this up because this is just, I was stunned. It takes a lot to stun me. I was stunned.
My wish for Caroline Leavitt. She is pregnant with a baby girl, and I truly do hope that baby is so healthy. I hope she's healthy and headstrong. So headstrong, in fact, that as she is emerging into this world through
wait for it,
Caroline's geriatric tech garage, that she tears her from bow to stern. Grade 4 tear. Like so big that when she gets out of the shower naked and walks across the room, like she accidentally picks up dog toys. Yeah. That's my wish for you, Caroline. My wish.
Now, for those of you who know anything, who have delivered a baby, who have cared for moms.
That is grotesque.
There's a thing called a 4th degree tear. The vast majority of tears, when the baby needs to make a little room, sometimes the doctor makes a little room. It's a tear. On one case, it's an episiotomy on the other. I'm going to go into a little graphic detail here.
Oh, Randy.
Can we?
No. I'm going to do it. You know why I'm going to do it? I'm going to do it because people need to understand these people are mentally ill. This is a mentally ill woman. She needs to be probably detained and given some help. She needs help.
Sound like she came from the dispensary to the studio.
This is an RN. Her license needs to be taken from her. At least she needs to be reprimanded. They need to investigate whether she's capable of providing care to her patients. She is, this precious baby. She calls Caroline Leavitt's birth canal a male organ garage. Then she goes on to say that she hopes that the tear goes all the way from the birth canal through the rectum. And in the worst case, in Africa, where women labor for days and sometimes the baby succumbs, they end up with one opening. It's a disaster. I've known doctors that are experts at treating that. They spent time in Africa repairing it. To wish this on Caroline Leavitt because you disagree with her boss's opinions? What is wrong with these sick, twisted people? This is... Are we at a place... I keep thinking we are in two Americas. We live in two Americas. I don't... What can you say about this? This is an RN, apparently. Look, I haven't AI'd it. I didn't have a chance. I think this is legitimate. I
Googled and her actual LinkedIn page comes up like in the listings, but if you click it, she's taken it down. She appears to be a real person.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is just one fruit of the evil spirit. We talk about spirit in our church. We're talking about spiritual gifts and about a fruit of your spiritual gift. If you're some people are teachers, some are shepherds, some are apostles, some are, and then, you have a gift. You're supposed to use it properly. This woman has a gift in caring. This is what she does. This is her worldview. And people who think that they're wanting to do the right thing by these poor immigrants that ICE is abusing and snatching up. And so they're gonna throw bottles at ICE agents. They're gonna smash cars. This is a sick, twisted mentality.
Yeah, I think we're losing the humanity. We used to be able to disagree on issues and say that, maybe what Caroline Leavitt was saying, I mean, tell me what she's saying is factually incorrect. Give me some facts that says she's lying to the American people. Tell me that she's wrong on the issues. But losing the fact that she's a mother and a person and wishing, ill on her personally, on her health, I think is something you don't hear from our side. When the gal in Minnesota got shot, I think for the majority of conservatives, they were saying it's a tragedy, right? Like no, we don't wish that happened. We didn't wish ill on her health or her life. But
nobody on the right ever said anything like that about KJP when she was in there.
Exactly.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, look, I understand if this woman had been scammed by Caroline's husband, or they'd been in a bar fight and Carolyn beat her up. I get that. I mean, if there's a personal vendetta, people, you shouldn't. Your pastor would say, you got to pray for the bad guy. You got to pray for your, okay, right. But you can almost understand it in a setting of you've been terribly wronged by someone. Not Christian, but understandable. What has Caroline Leavitt done to this woman? She's not done anything to her. And to wish this on her, a life of suffering and misery, and how can anyone, we talked about these three 18-year-olds and a juvenile. The juvenile shoots the ex-Marine and the ex-Marine firefighter in a cell phone steal, a robbery gone south. And you say, who would associate with these people? Who would even admit to knowing this woman, much less being a friend? And there's more like her. There are people that wish this kind of stuff on people that are 800 degrees from them. It's one thing to say, I hope Caroline Leavitt's kid goes to public school and doesn't get indoctrinated into the conservative way. That's fine. Wow, crazy. Well, speaking of Donald Trump and for pregnancy, and for you ladies who might be pregnant out there, or who you moms and dads have a very young toddler that you might want to give a little Tylenol to, there's some good news there. Waiting for Trump and crowd to walk it back. Talk about that when we come back on Make Missouri Healthy Again.
It's Wake Up Missouri.
Caroline's kid could go to a public school. I meant to say to be indoctrinated away from conservative values and towards liberal. Someone texted us, say, Randy, they're not going to get conservative indoctrination in the public schools. Of course not. Hey, there's a new study out that remember when Donald Trump looked in the camera and said, "Don't take Tylenol. Whatever you do, don't take Tylenol if you're pregnant. If you absolutely have to, just take." Remember, because in the rush to finding a cure for the reason for autism, RFK and crowd said, maybe we should, think about Tylenol, because there's some studies that indicate, and some mechanistic studies that say that actually it can cause autism and ADHD and developmental problems. Well, interesting. A new study now, which is very, very interesting and very reassuring for many of you women who are pregnant, or even if you have newborns, and you want to give them a little Tylenol. This is a sweeping new review. I mean, this is a big time review of many studies. They call it a meta-analysis. And it reveals that they cannot find any association between Tylenol and autism. No association between Tylenol and ADHD. No association between Tylenol, acetaminophen, Tylenol name brand, and developmental problems. So this is a good deal. They looked at 17 of the highest quality studies. They sort of put them all in the blender and estimate the overall risk. This is really like very good stuff. Now, when the risk assessment comes down to a number of 1, they call it a hazard ratio or an odds ratio. When it says 1, that means that that's the same risk as if you took a placebo when you're talking about medicine research. So the odds ratio for autism was 1.03. It was 0.97 for ADHD and 1.11 for intellectual disability. So what that means, these numbers are so close to 1 that because of just the error of studies, it needs to be a much wider variation from 1 for it to be statistically significant and meaningful. Bottom line is, even the guy who, along with dozens of other scientists back in 21, guy named Taylor, Dr. Taylor, even he is convinced. And his name, he comes from the Yale, his name's Hugh Taylor. He's the chief of obstetrics at Yale. And he's the one that basically, along with 90 other scientists back in 21, basically raised the issue. Hey, there's some data here. We need to look at this. He now has come out and said that it seems as though it's reassuring. And basically, it's not anything to worry about. I'm paraphrasing. And so the point is, yes, with any medicine, whether it's this or whether it's something much more vexing, you should always take it if you need it, and only if you need it, and only for as long as you need it, and as small a dose as you need to get the job done. Taylor told the news service, Straight Arrow News, this study found no difference. Now remember, this is from a guy who raised the question of, is Tylenol at the bottom of, is acetaminophen somehow having to do with autism? This study found no difference. We can't say that any one is a definitive study, but it's certainly reassuring. Certainly, if there was a huge signal that there was a common consequence of using acetaminophen, it would have shown up in all the studies. I think we can be reassured that if there is any risk, it is very low. Ladies and gentlemen, that's as close as you get to an endorsement of, if you need it, take it. This was much ado about nothing. And Donald Trump would be wise to come back and say, you know what? I think I got it wrong. Talk with your doctor.
Everything in moderation.
All right. Back with Congressman Onder in a minute.
news team.
We're doing a deep dive right now to identify them, follow the money, and find out who's organizing this, who's inciting the violence.
And now, introducing your host, Randy Tobler.
I would love my legacy to be that I was a great president, and a great president covers a lot of territory. We were safe, we were prosperous, we were doing well, we were happy as a country. I'd like to be known as a great president. A great president takes it all in.
President Donald Trump, in an interview with News Nation, looking back over his first year, now under our belt as of yesterday. Joining us now, 3rd District Congressman Bob Onder, representing large swaths of our listening area. Bob, welcome into Wake Up Missouri. And boy, it was government at the speed of Trump, wasn't it, for the first year?
Well, it sure was. Good morning. It's great to be back. Yes, to think that I was sworn in just about a year ago, January 3rd, and how things have changed. Joe Biden and the Democrats left the country in one heck of a mess. I mean, inflation peaked at 9.2%, mortgage rates peaked at 7.8%, 20 million illegal aliens invading our country, crime rampant. And I was going through my phone the other day looking for some other picture, and I found a photo I took in May of 2022 with gas at $4.16 a gallon. And I think just we've seen, through executive action, but also through the action of Congress, especially the Working Families Tax Cut Act this morning. We've seen things turn around. We secured the border. We passed an all-time historic tax cut. We reduced regulations on energy production, which resulted in dramatic decreases in gas prices, regulatory reforms, even a federal school choice program for the first time. So, there's a lot more to do. There's a lot more we need to do. But I really believe that a lot of the work we did last year and President Trump last year will bear its fruit this year. I think the economy will be doing well through this year. And I think things will go well in November for us.
The other thing that I think a lot of folks in Trump world, conservative world, Republican world, label it how you want, are waiting to see is some accountability for the incredible abuse of the justice system in the Biden era. And I know you'll be attending. You're on the Judiciary Committee, of course. We're going to be talking with Jack Smith this week. Tell us about that. Will a shoe finally drop? Will accountability happen one way or another, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, I think accountability must happen. I think Jack Smith abused his prosecutorial powers like no prosecutor ever before in our history. From the Trump, the Trump documents case. I mean, for heaven's sakes, he was the president of the United States. He had the power to classify, declassify, retain any document he wanted. But then Jack Smith's prosecution over alleged election fraud because he gave a speech and talked to a few of his advisors. Jack Smith wanted to put candidate Donald Trump, the Republican nominee for president of the United States, in prison on this specious nonsense that he didn't immediately accept the result of the election. Something that, by the way, Al Gore, Stacey Abrams, Hillary Clinton didn't either. He has a lot. Smith has a lot to answer for. We'll be asking him some tough questions. Whether Jack Smith definitely abused his power, his discretion. He definitely deserves to lose his law license. Whether he committed criminal acts isn't so certain. But there are certainly people who have committed criminal acts in the course of the weaponization of a government, especially law enforcement, the last 5 years, and they need to be held accountable.
That's Congressman Bob Onder joining us on Wake Up Missouri this Wednesday morning.
Now, last fall, we voted on Amendment 3, making Missouri one of the most wide-open abortion states in all of America. There will be another vote on a new Amendment 3 to perhaps re-implement some of the health and safety protections for women in Missouri coming up. But we're not the only state where this battle continues to rage on. There's a pretty big event in D.C. this weekend with the March for Life. Talk to us about what Amendment 3 means to you, this new Amendment 3, and the event this weekend.
Well, yes, Missouri went from, again, as you said, one of the most pro-life states in the country, where most all human life was protected from the moment of conception to the moment of natural birth. Also, a state though where we were very, very supportive of women with difficult pregnancies through pregnancy care center, tax credits, and other means to help those women. We went from that to a state where some out of state dark money groups came in and took advantage of our overly lenient initiative petition process in Missouri and bought themselves a constitutional amendment by deceiving the voters. Amendment 3 would reverse that, as well as protect, because Amendment 3, last year's 2024's Amendment 3, was so broad that it would very likely undermine our protections of children against the chemical and surgical mutilation in the name of transgender ideology. So it is critically important that we pass Amendment 3. I think it's all hands on deck. We have the support of all our Republican elected officials, our statewide elected officials, Governor Keogh and the First Lady. But we've got a lot of work to do to educate our fellow citizens that what they were deceptively sold in 2024 is not good law. It doesn't reflect Missouri values. But yes, I'll be participating in the March for Life this Friday. My son Peter, who's a junior in college, will be here as well. I look forward to that. That march has happened every year since, I believe, 1974 to celebrate life and to look forward to what more needs to be done to protect innocent life.
Dr. Bob, what's your take on the president's call to take over Greenland by whatever means?
Yeah, well, there's no question that Greenland is a strategically important piece of geography. It is, of course, the position there in the Arctic. It's an enormous land mass. It has critical minerals. It is the kind of first path of or the location of first detection of ballistic missiles from China and Russia, and there's the potential of major trade routes going forward in that area. At the same time, it's my understanding under existing treaties, the U.S. Can locate bases and military assets there. So I think there's probably some middle ground in between the benign neglect of the Danish, which really does have gives our enemies an opportunity to gain a foothold there, and us actually taking it as a possession. So I think this will all work itself out. But it's an interesting time.
We're talking with Congressman Bob Onder, and you may not know, some of you in Wake Up Land know that Dr. Onder is an allergy immunologist specialist and a very, very smart physician. I can tell you that. Through the years, I've consulted him many times on what we call a curbside consult. Knows just a little bit about health care as far as patient care and policy, but also an attorney. So I want to play something for you, Bob, and then get your reaction. This Sunday, an abomination occurred in a Minneapolis church.
I mean, what we're seeing around this country is they're using their political influence to attack people that disagree with them. They're going to come at me with charges, and I'm not scared of that. There's no base for these charges. I did not block them from, their service. They welcomed us in. They never asked us to leave. The police never came in and removed us. So we didn't stop their service.
That was the ringleader of that group that came in and disrupted the service with women and children running out and fearing for their safety. What are your thoughts about this, Bob? Is that a FACE Act violation, and what should happen to these hooligans?
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly a FACE Act violation, and of course, the sentiments reflected by that gentleman, I hate to call him a gentleman, were also expressed by Don Lemon, formerly of CNN fame. That's nonsense. The First Amendment right to protest does not allow trespassing. It does not involve violence. It does not extend to intimidation. And of course, the FACE Act of 1994 famously was passed to protect abortion clinics from protests, but it also included churches. That was kind of a compromise its promoters allowed at the last minute. The FACE Act has relatively rarely been used to protect churches and church services, but it ought to be. And I think criminal acts were committed. It's just utter nonsense that you could barge into private property, a church no less, and disrupt services, and that's somehow protected by the First Amendment. That's utterly absurd. People need to be prosecuted. People need to go to prison for that.
Is it time for pastors in the pulpit and priests in the pulpit and, rabbis and others in places of worship to openly promote where it's legal? And you were you were at the point of the spear when it came to constitutional carry in this.
Yep.
To make it clear with signage and with clear display of weaponry among the congregation that, hey, don't mess with us. Don't come in here. This is a sacred place of worship.
Well, I'll tell you, if they come into our church on Sunday, several of us are ready to take action. But I know of churches, and I know of concealed carry trainers who actually do formal programs to teach churches to organize their congregations.
Wow.
Knowing the law, knowing the best response.
Sure.
De-escalation, of course. If someone came in with, a baseball bat, you wouldn't shooting them wouldn't necessarily be the first thing you do. But I think really we live in a very dangerous time. Yeah. 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk's assassination. Yes, I think churches ought to be ready.
And Christians are under persecution worldwide, and now it's come to a country near us. In fact, 100%. It is us. Bob Onder, thanks for all the hard work you're doing. And, boy, we're keeping an eye on that fiscal cliff of sorts coming up here. Maybe we talk about that before or after that. Thanks for being with us, brother. Appreciate it.
No, thank you, Randy. I'm hopeful we'll get it done. Thank you.
All righty. Lots to cover this morning, and hopefully we can connect with Bob again. Stay tuned for more on Wake Up Missouri as we roll along here. We're going to be talking about this murder in Columbia as well.
It's
Been thinking about crime and punishment and good and evil and law and order. And I thought about what happened in that church the other day, and I don't know whether I'm angry or up in Minnesota, Minneapolis. One of these was the Minneapolis leader of Black Lives Matter. This other guy apparently has done other kind of incursions. You know, I guess I'd either forgotten and hadn't heard that J.D. Vance's church was sort of, you know, there was an incursion there at one point in the past. And I was looking at the text of this code. So the FACE Act, Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances, that's the name of this FACE Act that was passed several years ago. And to me, this is a clear violation of this. Here's okay, help me here, Stephanie. Is this like Section A, subsection 2, whatever? There's a 2 in parentheses. I don't know.
A2. Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
Look at you, lawyer.
Oh, watch out. Don't even think about it. Okay. It is prohibited activities include, and they say by force or threat of force, physical obstruction, blah, 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 any person obtaining or providing reproductive health services, so getting in their way. We've seen that invoked by Democrat administrations a lot, right? Mm-hmm. Little gray-haired ladies that are outside praying in a clinic, you know, outside of a clinic, standing in the driveway to the clinic. Oh, you're in violation of the FACE Act. We're going to take you to jail, you know. Okay. So this, though, extends the prohibited activities to include, this subsection 2, by force of threat or force of or by physical obstruction, intentionally injures, intimidates, or interferes with, or attempts to injure, intimidate, or interfere with any person lawfully exercising or seeking to exercise the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship. Now, let me just share with you a little bit of some of the sound from what happened the other day. Here it is. This was in the church Sunday morning.
Renee Good! Renee Good! Renee Good!
The pastor is speaking from the pulpit. I don't know whether he was reading, gospel or, Old Testament or whether he was giving a sermon, but he's speaking. They come in, this bunch of hooligans come in, and they start yelling the name of the woman that was drove her car either intentionally or erroneously into the agent and got killed. And they disrupt the service. Does anyone in their right mind, if you're a defense attorney, maybe Jennifer Bukowski could make a real cogent argument here. You tell me why there shouldn't be swift, certain, and severe punishment for every one of these hooligans that came in and did that. That is a violation of the FACE Act, period. End of report. And everyone listening, whether you're left or right, knows it. Common sense tells you that is a clear violation. What will there be? Investigations, 10 years of litigation. What's going on in this country?
Simple trespass, too.
Yeah, there you go. Well, a Marine that lived as a hero, died as a hero in Colombia. We'll talk about that when we come back. news god of the Columbia News Center here. You're part of the greatest news team in the world, You and John and Mike and Don. I mean, it just doesn't get better than that.
And Zach.
That's right. Zach gave the daily DC rundown yesterday.
And he did a nice job.
Good.
Stephanie he did a nice job filling in for you. And he's done a good job, too, filling in on newscasts. And you'll hear him more throughout the next couple of weeks on all the various stations.
I'm still trying to figure out. I'm trying to get an honest answer from Zach. Is that really your name? You couldn't make a better radio. Zach Factor.
He's looking at me through the production room window, shaking his head up and down.
International man of mystery, Zach Factor. Yeah.
Okay. Middle name Fear.
That's true.
What is, now I'm interested, what is Zach's middle name?
I don't know.
All right.
He may be able to tell John, but he's done a good job.
I think everyone in mid-Missouri has heard of this Facebook cell phone robbery gone south and turned into a murder. Story this morning out of one of I think it's a national news story now. At any rate, no, this is on KRCG. Ryan Burke, the victim of this horrendous event, Brian, had the wherewithal, bleeding out, dying, to text 911 first of all, and then text his mother and sister goodbye. I mean, you talk about live as a hero and die as a hero. That's Ryan Burke.
Yeah, it is. And some people, a lot of people call him Ryan Burke. I know Tanya Heath, a former mayoral candidate, says Ryan, but his official name is Michael Ryan Burke. So some confusion on that in case you hear Ryan versus Michael Burke. You're absolutely right, though, about the 911 call or text are both made to 911. That is in the court documents. I've got those up at 939theeagle.com. It's 5 pages. It is horrific what's in those details. Randy, what's not in there is that he texted or called the mother and the other family. That is not in there. So
they may have news.
Yeah, they may have gotten that from a family member, but that is certainly not in the court document. But I look at our Facebook page at 93.9 The Eagle, and it's basically melted over the last day and a half over this. There's hundreds and hundreds of comments, hundreds of new followers commenting on this, and they have very strong feelings. Now, the brother of one of the suspects is saying, well, he was out in the car. He didn't pull the trigger. But as you both have pointed out, when you're at the scene like that, you can still be charged with a murder. Now, they may lean on people like the other guy, Aus, to provide more information on that. But let me just set this up real quick, and then if you have any follow-ups, just what is new on this is that the 3 suspects have been charged with second-degree murder.
18 years old.
That's right. All 18, and I'll give you their names here in a second, charged with second-degree murder, which means not premeditated, or at least they can't prove it, and first-degree robbery, and then a couple of armed criminal action charges for the death of he was a U.S. Marine. He also is a former Columbia firefighter. Michael Ryan Burke, Sunday evening, was killed during a robbery of his phone on Ridgemont Court. That's west of Forum. It's west of CC's. All of us have been to CC's. It's really not far from there and not far from the Schnooks. It's an area you just don't hear about on the scanner too much. The charges involve 18-year-old Alexis Bauman of Hallsville, 18-year-old Kobe Ost of Columbia, and 18-year-old Joseph Crane of Columbia. In what you just referenced, it's in my story and in the court documents, Mr. Burke, a former firefighter, had multiple gunshot wounds, multiple wounds. We don't know all the details on the guns used, but during that, as he was dying, he called 911 to say someone came to his house to purchase his phone. Suspect shot him, gave other information. We don't know all of that because they don't put all that in the court document, but he provided critical information to get them to look at the cameras right away. And quite frankly, that call helped capture these. It not just helped, it did capture them.
This band of thieves, all accomplices or pulling the trigger, all together in a gang, had done this 2 separate instances with women involved in the robbery, right? Earlier in the day.
It would have been on January 16th.
Oh, sorry. Separate.
It was very close.
Yeah, okay.
Very close. One on January 16th, one on January 17th, according to the court documents.
So 2 days before. Yeah.
Very close, exactly. Claudel Lane, Randy, which would have been the 16th. I want to say that would have been Friday. It was Claudel Lane. There was someone that's very similar thing. Somebody grabs the phone. They've set this marketplace on Facebook and run away. Bauman, the young lady from Hallsville, allegedly had the getaway car there. And the second one that would have happened on Saturday, the day before the murder, would have been Northampton Drive, where a victim reports she was going to sell a black iPhone via the Facebook Marketplace, and it was stolen there. And then somebody pointed a gun at her and said, "If you follow me, I will shoot you."
So the scenario is you put your phone on the Marketplace. These kids come in. One or more came into the house, right? The juvenile, in all three, came into the house, apparently, right? And maybe one other time was accompanied in this last episode with Mr. Burke. And basically, you hand them the phone, and you say, "I need the money," and the money's not forthcoming, and they walk away. The women probably didn't challenge him. My guess is Michael Ryan Burke challenged him, and that was it.
Yeah, one of the women up on Northampton did actually challenge him, because he pointed a pistol at her. She was trying.
Well, but she backed down.
She backed down.
And Michael Burke, I'm sure, being a former Marine and ex-Columbia firefighter, didn't. He's not a former. He is a Marine.
He is a Marine, exactly.
And he's a veteran. And he was in the Trump security detail somewhere in Trump world.
I've heard
right?
that too. Yes.
So, I mean, here's a guy that's going to say, like, hell, you're going to take my cell phone, and unfortunately lost his life.
I mean, having a Marine dad, I think they have a very what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And I'm not going to let you do this to anybody else. You might try to do this to me, but you're not going to continue on this path.
And my soul just grieves for this guy. I mean,
and you both bring up a very good point. They don't say anything in here about a struggle, but I'm thinking that clearly there had to be something there.
9mm gun, three shots.
Yeah, and it's just it's horrible. The court documents are there; they're heavily redacted, but. The Jennifer Bukowski, you both know, you work with her. She posted something on the 93.9 The Eagle Facebook page I think is worth all KWTO and KWS listeners. I really want you to go to that, because you can also look at the people that are commenting on my story. But she points out advice for young people about getting into this. And what people on our Facebook page, some of them don't understand, is if you are in the car or whatever. Now, if you don't know about it, if you have no idea they're going to do it, you would be required to immediately report it to authorities. In this case, that didn't happen. Allegedly didn't happen. So, and then a lot of people are asking about the juvenile, because Alexis Bauman flat out says in here it was the juvenile that pulled the trigger. That she says the juvenile admitted when he got in the car, he was the one that shot Michael Burke. A lot of people want to know, well, where's his name? Why aren't you mugshot? We don't have a mugshot. He's a juvenile, and we can't. If I had his name, we couldn't use it anyway, unless he is certified as an adult. That will remain in juvenile court.
Is it possible? Because so what happens is they take the cell phones and then they drop it into this machine that gives them money for a cell phone. Right?
Yeah, I have
little as $100.
Wow!
And the only thing Bauman, the alleged getaway driver, got out of all this is she got some gas money in these. But this is the first I've heard of this about this. Go ahead, Randy.
Is it possible? Because the brother of one of these suspects.
Yep.
Said that I can't imagine my brother knowing of that and doing it. Is it possible that the juvenile said, "Yeah, I got the phone and I gave him a few bucks and now we're going to go sell it"? I mean, is it possible that they had? Is it possible that hanging out with a juvenile with a 9mm weapon, that somehow, some way, you don't know about this, that you don't know that this guy is on the wrong side of good and evil, that you don't know that this kid is in the wrong stadium and you don't want to be in that stadium? I mean, because there's people online saying we need to pray for these kids. Maybe they didn't know about it. They were just hanging out. Really? Do you really believe that?
I think this harkens back to our earlier discussion on Monday about low IQ. I do, because I think, like, also a cell phone. No, I'm serious. A $200 cell phone is worth spending the rest of your life in prison. I mean, that's completely irrational, right? Like, come on. I mean, it doesn't make sense. These people have low IQs.
And you bring up interesting point, because it is a cell phone, and let's say one was valued at $330. Again,
okay.
They're looking, but you're right.
A couple $100 and you're going to kill someone.
And
over
the only
it?
thing she allegedly got out of it was gas money. But again, to Randy's point about could they have not known, it is. I mean, that's going to be something the defense attorneys will have to argue before a court. when it comes up. I do know that and you can read the court documents for themselves. They're spilled out right here. I think what the prosecutor's going to change. Okay, you were buying three. This was 3 cell phones in 3 days. Did you not know this was going on? But Kobe. Let me find it. Kobe Ost. His brother is on our website saying no, his brother is not like that, and he was out in the car. He wasn't in there. So that's, again, we'll see. But he is charged with second-degree murder. The court says he's a danger to the community. He is jailed without bond. That's the judge. And by the way, prosecutor Roger Johnson is personally handling this case. Stephanie knows that doesn't happen every day. He usually has assistants handle it. Roger Johnson's handling this.
Well, nothing has blown up our Facebook page recently like this. I mean, if you're not involved in the conversation, get on there and read the comments. There's a lot.
Hundreds.
And you're back to the whole discussion, and Brian can relate to there. And as we talked earlier, there's legislation pending in both the Missouri House and Senate to give prosecutors a lot more leeway in charging juveniles as adult criminals.
There is on that, and that's obviously going to be pending. And then Sheriff Carey just last week on the Eagle, a specific interview with Mike Murphy on the Eagle I Drive at 5, says this was before this, said the shooters are getting more brazen. They're getting younger and younger and younger, and that is what's going on.
So
is what he said.
Here it raises something, and those of you who are parents and you've shepherded kids through middle school and beyond, you know that if you have more than one kid, the odds are that one or more of your children is going to associate with people that you wish they wouldn't associate with. I maintain that there are a lot of parents that need help. They need help from the school system in accountability to validate their wanting to make accountability. I don't know the details here. They need help from police. They need help from the justice system to, at an earlier time, because there's testimony on our, there's posts on our website saying, I went to school with this kid. I forget which one. It doesn't matter. Yeah. And I knew since 6th grade this kid was going to end up. Okay, parents see that. Teachers see that. Their fellow students see it. Where is the early intervention? There is no early intervention to help parents because parents are just parents. They need help.
And I'll tell you, the first thing the defense attorney is going to do, whoever gets this case, they're going to take a look at the 93.9 The Eagle Facebook and they'll say, Your Honor, my clients can't get a fair trial in mid-Missouri. And I think they're going to get a change of venue. I think because all they got to do is point that out. They're going to point. And for the people saying they knew that from 6th grade these were problems, but they didn't report it. Well, they're telling us on the Facebook.
But I'd be afraid to report anything because I don't trust the justice system's going to support me and defend me. Because people don't go to jail and stay in jail. That's the problem.
You worry about retaliation and stuff like that.
Well, okay, keep these criminals in jail. And I want a jail cam feed into every classroom, morning and afternoon, with pick your friends, kids, and don't go south.
Good stuff.
Thank you, Brian.
Great job.
All right. What do you have when we come back?
Hey, no parking in my bedroom.
Hope Ron Fitzwater's listening. We'll be back.
It's Wake Up.
And that would be all, except for this.
Turns out 70-year-old Skip Lucky Cunningham was asleep on his couch last week when a car crashed into his home and landed on him. Says, I woke up with blood running down my head and a car laying on top of me. Says the driver's running around saying, sorry, sorry, sorry. And I says, well, call 911. Ambulance took Lucky to the hospital where he got 13 staples in his head. But on the way, trying to play out his amazing luck, he asked the ambulance guys to stop so he could buy a lottery ticket. He says they wouldn't stop. Cunningham says, I've lived in the house for 50 years. This is the 5th time a car has run into the house at our intersection. His daughter said she was happy he was okay and he wasn't babysitting her niece like he usually does at the time of the crash. She did take him to 7-Eleven. He bought a big gulp and a lottery ticket, he says, after leaving the ER and won $20.
Gee.
So aptly named Lucky.
The crazy things people do. Man.
He said, they said they were going to ask the city fathers to perhaps think about a traffic signal for that intersection after being a car running into the house once every 10 years for 50 years.
Isn't that wild? Is there something strange about the proximity of the house to the road? Or
Sure sounds like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Like maybe, I don't know.
How the driveway's laid out. It looks like it's actually the street when it's a drive. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah. I wonder.
You know what I bet it is? I bet this guy is the guy who hands out potatoes and apples during Halloween, and people are just mad. That's what I think this is.
Oh, coot.
There was a guy in our old subdivision. I'd take the kids around, and this guy would actually, I think he was a doc. It was embarrassing. And he actually practiced in Columbia for a while. I think he's retired. He would actually, from behind the door, goes, I don't have anything. Go away. Jeez.
Really?
Yeah, hateful.
I remember being a kid, my good friend's mom always made homemade popcorn balls, and you had to, all the trick-or-treaters had, this was in quarters on base, you had to parade through their living room to his hyper-bored-looking father trying to watch the ball game. To show off your costume and get a sticky homemade popcorn ball that we generally, truth to it, we fed him to the neighbor's German Shepherd who always barked at us and laughed at him trying to get the sticky popcorn ball out of his teeth.
Was it those sticky popcorn balls or all sticky popcorn? Because I like sticky. They're full of Caro high fructose corn syrup, sadly.
Yeah.
But especially if they're caramel. What if they're the caramel variety? That's a different story.
We were kids. We wanted the giant Baby Ruth or Snickers or something. We wanted nasty homemade popcorn balls.
I always enjoyed the popcorn balls. Oh.
We couldn't get away with handing them out to the public in the modern era, could you?
No.
Yeah, you have to worry, like, how clean is that person's kitchen and their ingredients? And
Stephanie, the germaphobe. Germs are good for you.
Or foreign things people allegedly put in that stuff.
That's the concern. Are they still X-raying the kids' goodie bag at the hospitals?
Remember they used to, didn't they?
Yeah. Bad neighbors would put razor blades into the apples and stuff. Unbelievable. What kind of sick people are these? I don't know. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk to Zach Smith about the FACE Act and about these intruders in Minnesota. Can Trump buy Greenland or somehow otherwise coerce it? And the Supreme Court goings on. Will the tariffs stick or not? Trump speaking in Davos as we talk.
From the Zimmer Radio Network headquarters,
We need Greenland for national security very badly.
it's your morning addiction. Wake Up Missouri with Stephanie Bell.
If I was the Ayatollahs, I'm not sure I'd be poking the bear with Donald Trump.
The Zimmer News Team.
We're doing a deep dive right now to identify them, follow the money, and find out who's organizing this, who's inciting the violence.
And now, introducing your host, Randy Tobler.
So we didn't stop their service. In fact, people were still praying the entire time. The music was still playing the entire time. So, Pam Bondi, you want to come and arrest me? You want to come and give me charges? So be it. And for all the people giving me death threats, threatening my life, kill me. Go ahead, kill me. Because you know what? As Fred Hampton said, you can kill the revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution.
Well, tough talk from a beta male who invaded a Minnesota church along with the local BLM leader. So that's a beta male statement there.
Boy, in this present environment and the mindset, I don't know if I'd be tempting fate like that.
That's the guy who came in and disrupted that church service on Sunday. Apparently, he's been involved in the Hagseth Church and J.D. Vance, I think, too. There are groups of these people who think that they can come into a house of worship and just have their way with the worship service. Zach Smith with Heritage helps us unravel these things from time to time, and he joins us now. Zach, welcome into the program. This was, on many levels, just something that just was so repulsive. It gave me nausea when I saw and heard about this and thought about it. Your reaction to this?
Yeah, it's absolutely shameful. That's what the pastor there in the city's church in Minnesota said when the agitators were coming into the church. He said it was shameful conduct on their part, and he's absolutely right. It is. And it's illegal conduct as well, Randy. Look, I doubt we're going to see local Minnesota officials prosecuting these agitators, though they certainly could. Their conduct likely violates several Minnesota statutes. But instead of condemning or criticizing these individuals, Keith Ellison, the Minnesota Attorney General, he actually had the audacity to go on Don Lemon's show. And for your listeners who may not know Don Lemon, of course, he's the disgraced former CNN anchor who was embedded with those agitators, was there kind of egging them on. And Keith Ellison went on a show and essentially defended their actions and said that what they did was not a violation of federal law, at least, because the Trump Justice Department is appropriately promising to prosecute these individuals. And I think that's a good thing that's very warranted in this instance.
We read a little bit from the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances, the FACE Act, and I think it may have been lost on a lot of people because this was, it's been so prominent in the news in Democrat administrations, right? Both Obama and Biden. You see gray-haired ladies, protesting outside an abortion clinic. Next thing you know, they're in court and sometimes in jail. We think of it in terms of abortion clinic protests, but it does extend to the attempts to injure, intimidate, or interfere with any person lawfully exercising the First Amendment right of religious freedom. It couldn't be more plainly clear, could it, that these people were in clear violation of a federal law?
Yeah, that's right, Randy. Look, and I've been very critical of the Obama and Biden administrations. They really weaponized the FACE Act and applied it in instances where it wasn't really intended to be implied, and they applied it in potentially unconstitutional ways, I think, because often what the Obama and Biden administrations were doing is you have sidewalk counselors, people who were there oftentimes simply to offer prayer for individuals that were going into abortion clinics, to pray for them, pray that they would change their mind and not follow through with the murder of their unborn child. And yet those individuals who are simply there to offer prayer and counseling, they were prosecuted by the Obama and Biden DOJs in really a weaponized use of the FACE Act. And so now if these individuals who desecrated this sanctuary in Minnesota, who interrupted this church service, scared parishioners in the process of doing so, if they are not prosecuted under the FACE Act, that itself would be a gross injustice. But fortunately, we've seen AG Pam Bondi, we've seen Harmeet Dillon, the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, promising to hold these individuals accountable, and I'm hopeful that happens very quickly. In the recent past, Zach, we've seen synagogues attacked and, Jewish
people killed, worshipers. I mean, there's been violent attacks now against Christians. There seems to be sort of among certain, justice departments, a wink, wink, nod, nod to these kind of activities. But I'm thinking about now, what can parishioners going to church and worshipers going to synagogue this Saturday and Sunday, what is permissible? And I'm thinking about the Mark McCloskey case, famously, when protesters in St. Louis were protesting down the street, not coming into his home. He lost his law license. He lost his gun. I think recently he recovered them. I don't know. But was prosecuted for brandishing a weapon. Would it be illegal? Would it be illegal for, in this instance, in Minnesota, or this coming Sunday, for people where it's legal to carry, like in Missouri, constitutional carry, open carry, for people to brandish their weapon? Should a group of people come in and start yelling, the name of this officer that shot this Miss Good? Would that be illegal, or would it not be?
Well, I think it's going to be a matter of state law. But look, I think it's certainly clear you have a right to self-defense wherever you are. No one has a right to trespass on private property and stay where they are being disruptive, where they are not there to engage in worship services. And so, yes, I think churches, synagogues, other houses of worship do have a right to protect their property and their parishioners. Now, the sad reality is, Randy, you mentioned Mark McCloskey. That obviously was in the city of St. Louis. There was a rogue prosecutor there, Kim Gardner, who was very happy to prosecute perceived political enemies very aggressively. The local district attorneys in Minneapolis, St. Paul, they are not sympathetic to Second Amendment rights. They are very radical individuals, particularly the Minneapolis Hennepin County prosecutor there. And so just from a real politic perspective, I think, unfortunately, parishioners, those in those cities have to be very careful in the actions that they take. But look, I think the clear message is I hope every house of worship, every synagogue, every church, that they have a security plan in place and have thought through how to respond to these types of instances.
We're talking with Zach Smith with Heritage, also an observer of the Supreme Court, and also an author. And he knows a little bit about rogue prosecutors. That's the name of his book, Rogue Prosecutors, How Radical Soros Lawyers Are Destroying America's Communities. He joins us on Wake Up Missouri.
We talked last week with our friends at Judicial Watch over their big win in the Bost case out of Illinois. We've also recently been hearing more about what Virginia plans to do with respect to their election laws. What does this case mean for election integrity going forward?
Yeah, it's a very big case. I'm sure the folks in Judicial Watch were rightly very excited about their great win at the Supreme Court. The Bost case, of course, was a challenge to Illinois, essentially receiving and counting absentee votes after Election Day. There's the allegation in that case was that violated federal election law. But what was decided was actually a very narrow legal issue, whether the individuals, the politicians who brought that suit had standing or the legal ability to do so. And even though lower courts said they did not dismiss the cases, the Supreme Court said they did have standing, that their case could move forward. And so now what's happening is the lower federal courts are going to have to decide that case on the merits. I doubt it will be resolved before the upcoming midterm elections. It may be, but I doubt it. But it will certainly have implications for the 2028 presidential election and every congressional, senatorial, presidential election going forward. But look, the last thing I'll say, Stephanie, is you mentioned the Democrats in Virginia. They're moving very quickly to enact a host of very radical, very bad laws. They've acted very quickly to redistrict, to gerrymander Virginia in a very favorable direction for Democratic politicians. And so I think that has really been a wake-up call to many Republicans and others who may have been hesitant to redraw their own congressional districts, watching and looking to see what has happened so quickly in Virginia.
Zach, if the DOJ under one administration can prosecute Donald Trump for, quote, inciting insurrection, can the DOJ prosecute Tim Walz and or Fry and or Ellison and others for the things they've said, like Fry saying we want ICE to get the F out, in terms of obstructing federal law enforcement agency? Because they've now been subpoenaed.
Well, look, I think Jacob Fry, his statements are absolutely shameful. I think it's clear he's endangering the lives of ICE officers, federal law enforcement officers, and he should be ashamed. Now, in terms of the actual actions they're taking, states, they do not have to cooperate with federal law enforcement agents if they do not want to. There's a Supreme Court case saying that the federal government cannot compel them to do so. Now, they can certainly provide incentives for them to do so. So, for instance, a lot of the federal funding, grants in particular that are going to Minneapolis or Minnesota, you may see the federal government trying to claw those back to entice state officials to cooperate with them. But to your point, Randy, what local officials cannot do is they cannot actively obstruct federal law enforcement officials. They cannot actively impede their investigations or their ability to perform their functions. And I think that's the reason you're hearing President Trump threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act. That's the reason you're seeing him trying to send federal troops into many of these cities, is because local authorities are not doing their duty and not protecting these federal law enforcement agents while they're trying to enforce federal law.
Talk to us quickly about the Supreme Court's take on the trans athlete's decision, and the president doesn't sound any too crazy about it.
No, look, it's absolutely crazy that we have to have a U.S. Supreme Court case, hopefully, that will say states do not have to allow men to play in women's sports. And yet that's exactly the issue in this case. Essentially, the challengers are arguing that laws passed by West Virginia and Idaho are unconstitutional. They're claiming they violate the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution, that they violate Title IX, a statute that was originally passed to make sure that women had ample opportunity to participate in sporting and other events. But now the challengers are trying to weaponize that to essentially destroy women's sports by forcing states to allow men to participate in women's sports. Now, thankfully, listening to oral arguments, it seems like a majority of justices were not sympathetic to the claims of those challengers, but we'll have to wait and see exactly how this case is written when it comes out later this year.
Well, we covered a lot of landscape today, a lot of geography. We didn't get into Greenland much. Maybe next time we talk, we can do that. And I'm sure there'll either be some Supreme Court decisions and or interesting arguments to talk about as well. Zach Smith, thanks for keeping an eye on everything going on in our legal world. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me on the show. Take care.
All right. You can stay in touch with Zach on X at TZ Smith. TZ Smith. What's going on in the markets? We'll discuss that when Stephanie brings you the morning bell in about 4.
It's Wake Up
There tolls the bell. What story does it tell?
Well, I'm super thankful I spent the day lawyering yesterday and not watching my stock portfolio, Randy. The Dow plummeted nearly 900 points and the S&P had its worst day since October. As we look at the percentages, the NASDAQ down 2.39%, S&P down 2.06%, Dow down 1.76%. It does look like the futures are in the green, so we might get a bump today, but big losses in technology, consumer discretionary, and financials yesterday. Now, some news out of Kansas City that is business related. They're reporting about who we are going to get for base camps for the big FIFA tournament. We kind of heard, I think, an announcement about what games we're going to get, but these base camps are important. That's where the teams actually kind of home base for a while during the tournament and practice and, have their own facility. And hosting, Fox 4 reports that hosting these teams would bring extended stays, global media attention, and a significant economic impact beyond just the match days. So yesterday it is being reported, although the source is anonymous because apparently they're not supposed to be talking about this yet, but Fox 4 is reporting that 4 countries, Argentina, England, the Netherlands, and Algeria, will call Kansas City their home base for the FIFA. Those are some big teams.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the team. They have an entourage.
It's really exciting. So as we bring all of those people in for extended stays, this Wall Street Journal article caught my eye, not only because it is currently listed as the most read article on the site, which sometimes these give me a chuckle, but also because it's about traveling. We have the latest on your hotel room. And we've talked a lot about hotel prices. You know where this is going, Randy?
I saw
Apparently, hotels are canceling bathroom doors. And guests are big mad about this. They're saying first they took the closets, then the bathtubs. Now they're coming for the bathroom doors. Civilization is collapsing. And the social media posts on this are just hilarious. One woman said apparently sometimes they're like frosting the glass door. Sometimes you get that sliding barn door that swings open or has the cracks on the side. Sometimes there's just a curtain, and some hotels are just not having a bathroom door altogether.
Yeah, sometimes it's just a long glass slider. I mean, a long glass big panel, right? And you slip into the stall, and the shower is there against the panel wall.
One woman said, "I've been married 25 years. I love my husband. I do not want to watch him use the bathroom." And they're saying these doors don't stop sounds or smells or light when your significant other wakes up, or the emotional damage of having to watch or hear someone use the potty. Another comedian said, "This door is designed to either move your relationship forward or end it." I think this is a missing the mark for hotel rooms. The prices have been increasing and increasing and increasing. And I think if you're paying $300 a night, a nice solid core door for your bathroom is the only appropriate way to handle the situation. Anyway, at least one person on social media has started a hotel wall of shame and is posting and I guess ranks hotels by privacy and lists over 500 hotels on the No Door Hall of Shame. So
that's crazy.
Hopefully they list on their, when you get on and it describes the hotel, there should be a disclaimer. Hey, by the way, we don't believe in bathroom doors.
It's a big problem. They keep downsizing. Back with Ilhan Omar being investigated.
I think just local
The money? Well, that's precisely what the House Oversight Committee is doing. They are probing squad member Ilhan Omar's skyrocketing family wealth, Jesse, especially in the wake of that $9 billion, some would argue $19 billion, Somali social services fraud scandal that exploded in her district in Minnesota. The Oversight Chair, James Comer, says his team's lawyers are exploring the extraordinary step of subpoenaing Omar's spouse over his curious business practices?
Well, that's Kevin Cork reporting on the Oversight Committee's investigation into Ilhan Omar. How do you enter, Congress with basically very little in your bank account, right? And you have debt. I think she had auto debt, maybe some other kind of debt. And within a year, her net worth jumps to $30 million tied to her or her husband's assets.
Maybe she just made BFFs with Nancy Pelosi and some really good investments.
She was following the Pelosi, that site Peter likes to talk about, the Pelosi, investment site. And the question is there a connection between a lot of this apparently hinges on her husband's incredible wealth. The company or companies that he was involved in went from little to no earnings to the millions and millions of earnings.
And it's just a coinky-dink that it happened the year she got elected to Congress.
Yeah.
That before he was, his businesses weren't doing so well, and then suddenly people had an interest in investing. I mean, come on.
I don't know. It just there's so much scrutiny over the public benefits. It started with the Food for People scam, and then that was almost $1 billion, I think. And then of course it's gone to the daycare, and then the home health care, and on and on and on, with now not dozens but hundreds of, basically shell false companies. And let's see, last time I checked, most of the fraud is occurring in Somali-run companies, right? Alleged companies. And last time I checked, didn't Ilhan Omar, did she come from Venezuela? No. Denmark? No. Sweden? No. Taiwan? No. Oh, Somalia. Yeah.
Married her brother, right?
Yeah. So what did she know? When did she know it? When did she know something and look the other way? We've already heard tapes about Keith Ellison talking with supporters, basically doing a pay-for-play kind of a scheme. At least that's what's alleged. Oh, they weren't convicted until later. Well, come on. This goes back to the murder thing we talked about in Columbia. If you're just joining us, these 3 18-year-olds were accomplices either by knowledge, by being in the car, or worse, we don't know, but allegedly accomplices in a shooting of a Marine veteran, also an ex-Columbia firefighter, when they stole his phone, as they had done the day before and the day before that, to 2 women in the area, so that they could drop it off at an ATM machine and get, what'd you say, John, $150 or?
150 to up to, depending on how new it is, and presumably you wouldn't be selling off a brand new iPhone, but yeah, a few $100.
Okay. So, and so you wonder, does Keith Ellison, does Ilhan Omar, does Tim Walsh, do they and their people hang out with people that are donating to them, that are important to their electoral success, and not know that these people are involved in things? Oh, let me see. Tim Walsh's administration retaliated allegedly against whistleblowers. One after another have come out and said, my God, I was on the blacklist. I was fired from my job, and then I could not get another job in government. Well, you could say, well, one's a one-off. Maybe they're just a bad apple, and they're just got to have an axe to grind, and that's why they're, quote, whistleblowing, close quote. There's just... when someone in your orbit, you generally, if you're close enough to someone, or you're getting some benefit from someone, or you've done a transaction enough with people, you get to know. You start reading, especially if you're in those circles, people in your orbit. You are reading the newspapers. You know about these scandal investigations. John started in what, 18, 19? I mean, it's been years.
Several years.
And at a minimum, even if you think they are squeaky clean, absolutely put on the choir boy robe clean. If optically, if there's the appearance of something bad, you'd probably want to separate yourself from that. No? That's what I was taught. You just don't want to be around people that are not squeaky clean. because it tarnishes your reputation. Good policy.
You are who you hang out with.
Yeah.
I mean, you were criticizing me the other day when I said, like, people, like, I don't want to hang out with stupid and poor people, right? Like, if you're hanging out with, like, people who aren't, goal-oriented and who aren't achieving success, then, like, it's, like, least common denominator. You're going to just, like, if you hang out with people who eat chips and play video games all day, that's who you're going to be. If you're hanging out with criminals,
I like it.
Same story. So I think you agree with what I said. You were pushing back on me when I said that, but I think you're making my point here.
Well, there's a difference between you and me. I like to hang out with stupid and poor people because that's me. That's the kind of person I am. You laugh at me all the time about how I don't know about this performer. I don't know about Bugs Bunny doing the Super Bowl. I don't know about this performer, that performer. So I sort of feel that way.
You are culturally naive.
I'm just a Luddite like most of the people in the world. I'm not that. I'm just get along.
But I think what we know is that, I mean, you have a good church community, you have a good medical community, and I think those of us who are trying to advance ourselves are trying, it's not that, like, again, I kind of jest about the poor people, right? But I think having people who have similar principles, similar values, similar work ethic, I think drives you to be better. You're inspired. I mean, I'm constantly, like, inspired by people that are around me. Sometimes, I'm also like, ooh, I wouldn't want to be like that. But I think for the most part, I like to surround myself with people who are doing cool things. And
I don't know though. I have to tell you, one of the many inputs for the reason we moved from our hometown of St. Louis into a small town of 2,500 in northeast rural Missouri was to help our kids stay grounded, because we were, in Metro St. Louis, we were hanging around people who, and we didn't live in an opulent neighborhood, but, the dentist down the street or the doctor, whatever, or the successful business. All of a sudden we started hearing talk about, well, my kid goes to this private school. Oh, your kid doesn't they go to a different private school. And my kid they will not wear anything except, American Eagle from the mall. And my kids started getting a little bit of that infusion of the elitist thing, and I didn't want that. I don't want that. That's not good, because I'm a blue-collar kid, right? My dad was a school teacher and a musician. I think I get worried about, sometimes you see this at the higher levels. When people get up to D.C., they get into lobbying, they get into this and that, and they begin to just forget about regular people. You know what? Forget about regular people. I want to be a regular person.
And in this day and age, the way the economy is, there's a lot of people out there who could genuinely be called poor people, and they're good hardworking folks.
People. Yeah.
But I think too, we struggle with that as parents. And if you have advice for me, it sounds like Randy moved to try to fix this issue. But I think as parents, you always want to give your kids a better life. So there's this tension between, like, growing up like that, but also wanting to provide. And I'll never forget, I thought I was going to slap one of my kids upside the head. I did not. But I remember when growing up, we never went on vacation. And it just wasn't something we did. And I think I remember, like, 2 trips as a kid or something. Right. And I didn't go on vacations when I had a young family, couldn't afford to go. And eventually Grandma and Grandpa said, hey, we're going to start, we're going to go down to Florida. We're going to get a place. If you would like to, if you can drive yourself, we'll help you pay for the lodging. Mm-hmm. And that made it affordable for us to be able to take a quote family vacation. And we did that for a couple of years. And I think I was talking about going the next year. And one of my kids said, I don't want to go to Florida. We always go to Florida. And I was like, are you kidding me? I am going to murder you right now. I was so mad. And it was a wake up call for me, because again, I would have been ecstatic to go on one Florida vacation as a kid. And so you're trying to do the best you can and spend family time and make Grandma and Grandpa happy. But hearing that back from them, I'm like, are you not thankful? Like, this is such an amazing gift.
Right.
That we're trying, and
that's it, the gratitude part.
But how do you balance that? Anybody have any ideas? I'm trying to work on it.
Yeah, I just think that, I've said it before, and I know, Drake, you can clip this if you want, and that's okay. You can play it over and over. Bernie isn't all wrong when he says we're heading to 2 Americas economically. It's too easy for folks who have means and are blessed to just continue to leverage that, and people then on the other end of the spectrum. I think it has a lot to do with crony capitalism. It has a lot to do with that, with regulations, and I just want to be careful about that. And you said an interesting thing. You said you want to give your kids more. Did you mean that literally, or is it you want to help your kids earn a better life than you had? I choose the latter.
I think both.
I choose the latter.
Oh, you give your kids plenty. I could talk to your daughters about that. But yeah, I think both. But I think, it's also out of the mouths of babes. It's reminding me of another story that I recalled recently. We used to stay in like Airbnbs, right? So you'd bring all your stuff and it looked like a condo or whatever. It wasn't a hotel. And I remember Eden saying, well, I left my brush so we had been staying in this condo for a couple days, and she was so sad because she said, I left our brush at our old house. And in her mind, we had moved to Florida because we had been there for 3 days. And I said, oh, no, honey.
No.
We did not move to Florida. We're going back to our actual house. This is just a temporary stay.
Your brush will be waiting for you.
She was very sad, and not so sad probably that she thought we had moved to the beach.
No.
But yeah, I think, as parents, I think that's a real struggle in how do you build up that work ethic when, you are busy with sports and other things, and you might have help around the house with either lawn care or cleaning or whatever, and making sure your kids know to appreciate the things that they have.
Well,
I haven't figured it out.
Well, the common denominator, I think, with that sort of threading the needle between providing for your kids and not making them live destitute lives so that they can pursue their studies or their sports or whatever, is to set that example. They see you working day to night, and then you do the show, and then you're in court all day, and then your mom, okay, I thought I tried to set a good example. I was working 2 or 3 jobs all the time, because they need to get that connection between you work hard and you play hard, right?
100%.
I think that's a fair formula. I think in many pockets in America, particularly with our investment society and the venture capital rules and all that, sometimes you just work hard at your computer, and what are you really doing? And when your job goes south, do you know how to get back to work and do a Mike Rowe kind of a life? I don't know. Just saw a story about how MBAs are not finding jobs. It's a wasteland for young MBAs now. We'll come back and wrap it up. But what do you think about a couple of parents that are keeping their kids in line by, locking them in a cage? Something about a BB gun here in Missouri.
It's
about a story that actually Peter showed us. I thought, wow, this is interesting. You see that story out of the southeast area where there's this couple that were shooting BBs at their kids, a couple of kids in like a cage type of environment.
That's awful.
Sort of frightening, right? I mean, what is with people?
Maybe they ran out of paintballs.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I just think this world has gone crazy. Are people bored?
How old are the kids? Because that dictates how I feel about this.
Let's see. Let me call it up here. This is out of southeast Missouri. Forced children into fight nights and threatened them with real firearms. Or maybe they weren't in a cage. Washington County, Missouri. It's a pretty rough area, southwest of St. Louis. And charged 2 counts each of first-degree kidnapping, first-degree endangering the welfare, armed criminal action. So apparently they would have fight nights, and then they were locked inside a chicken pen that was fastened shut and then shot at with BB guns during the alleged incident.
Well, we've been talking about what is with people all morning and the bad things in the world, and I want to give a shout out to some people who are doing some really good work from last night. You might have seen there's been a hot topic about a new development in Columbia. The Columbia City Council last night rejected this development, the Ashford Place development. I will say I was involved. I represented some of the residents there. But outside of my involvement, I will say one of the city council members actually commended some of the residents who showed up. So and I was and said she was impressed by how much they had educated themselves. Mm-hmm. People were reading off provisions of code. They were reading off, there were mountains of paperwork, documents upon documents upon documents, and people were quoting specific provisions and provisions out of the ordinances, just regular old citizens. And one of the city council members said, I'm really impressed with the amount that you've learned about the P&Z process and about the code, and you speaking respectfully and on the topics that are important. And I was equally impressed. I think there were some people in that room who probably should have gone to law school.
Yeah, that's good.
And it was heartening to see citizens getting involved. The meeting went very late. It was heartening to see elected officials tuned into what was, the discussions that were happening. The meeting continued, I think, well past 11 o'clock last night. So this was after that issue.
This was a housing development with single-family things, right?
Well, they were
triplexes, and in the context of Columbia wanting and needing more housing, for them to really go against their own sort of momentum. That was quite a yeoman's effort that, the citizens and you were involved in that representing.
Yeah, and I think it brought up a larger discussion about, how a growing community proceeds with development. Yeah. If you're currently lacking the infrastructure, at what point do you have to press pause and say we need to put in the infrastructure before we start slapping down these developments? And so I think, for all communities, I think that's a question it's a tough one, right? It's a tough one.
So bottom line is, do your homework.
Yeah.
Right? If you're a citizen and you're fighting some kind of city hall thing, do your homework. Be respectful. Have Stephanie on your side.
I don't know.
And above all, have high IQs. No, but
don't be broke.
Don't be
about that.
No, I mean,
but I think people who are really invested in their community and who do the research and who show up and who, I think that's an educated citizenry is really important, and it was on showcase last night. I think
very, very cool.
Yeah.
Very good. Congrats on that victory, along with those citizens in that community. Tomorrow, we're going to ask Steve Bucci about Greenland, how important to national security is it, and more on Wake Up Missouri.
Bye.